Everybody, and thank you for joining us for the first in our series, Wednesdays with Women's Philanthropy. I'm Julie Yowitz, Vice Chair of Engagement for Women's Philanthropy. Some Zoom housekeeping matters. We will be recording this session. Please mute yourself if you have not already done so. If you have any questions for Amy, please put them in the chat or indicate you have a question in the chat. Since there are so many on the call, you may want to switch to speaker view to see her better. I would like to thank the Women's Philanthropy Outreach Committee for their ideas and leadership putting together this exciting series of speakers. Before we begin with today's program, I wanted to let you know how Jewish Federation is leading the Jewish community through this crisis. To date, the Community Response Fund, to help meet the most pressing needs established in our community, has raised over $655,000 from over 414 donors. Michael and Carol Steinberg generously started the fund with a $100,000 challenge grant. Based on the needs assessment that was conducted, funds are being allocated to meet the most pressing basic human needs. You can learn more about this fund and the annual campaign by going to the Jewish Federation website. The Federation's role in the community is threefold: to act as a convener, communicator, and funder. Now more than ever, Federation is here for good. The purpose of Women's Philanthropy is to connect as a community with each other as Jewish women, as well as with the many important agencies and programs that the Jewish Federation of St. Louis supports. Through our engagement, educational, and community service efforts, along with the campaign, Women's Philanthropy truly inspires social good. We are so excited to bring the community together for this series, to learn and have fun together, to stay connected, even while we are physically apart. The topic of today's talk is finding humor in challenging times. Many of us have found comfort in the humorous stories, Facebook posts, and memes through this situation. Please know that Federation, JFS, and our community partners are here to be a resource and support to you and our community. Please visit the Federation website or reach out to a staff member if you need anything or would like more information. I am now excited to introduce our guest speaker, Amy Fenster Brown. Amy is married to Jeff and is the mother of Davis, who is 14, and Leo, who is 13. Before having kids, she worked in local TV news at 3 different stations, was nominated for 9 Emmys, and won one for news writing. She works in publishing at a company that counts St. Louis Bride Magazine and Wear Magazine among its titles. Amy loves her new side gig as a columnist for the St. Louis Jewish Light, where she writes about relatable everyday topics, usually with humor sprinkled in. Amy turned 50 during this quarantine, and according to her, hasn't been able to color her gray hair, mainly because she is too lazy. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Here's the gray, if anyone's following along. I'm gonna write a book about how to find positivity and have gray hair, and it's called The Silver Linings Playbook. Okay, we're gonna start with a question. Raise your hand, show of hands, if you are wearing a bra during quarantine. All right, keep your hand up if you're wearing a good bra. Okay, I know other people think like I do, that in the quarantine, you're learning new things, you have time for new things. And one of them I'm doing is giving my good bras a break. And now my bad bras are known as my good bras. So there's that. Feel free to use the chat bar. I have never been a guest speaker before, and in about 18 minutes, you will find out why. But if you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat bar or wave around and ask a question. I know a lot of you, I see a lot of faces I know. For those of you who don't know me, I just want to give you a little more background than Julie did. I grew up, it's kind of rough, I grew up on the east side of Creve Coeur. Anybody familiar? The equivalent to being jumped into a gang was when the other little girls would take away my Gucci handbag and make me drink tap water. My mother was an English teacher. My father was a social worker. So The only thing I inherited is the ability to be grammatically correct when I express my feelings. I did want to look a little refreshed and, youthful today. I wanted to get Botox, but every place is closed. And I read about it and I found out that it's based on botulism food poisoning. So I just put spoiled cold cuts all over my face. But then my husband got totally turned on because we're Jewish and I smelled like ham. So we're dealing with a lot of different things. So the committee asked me to talk about how I'm staying positive during the quarantine and how to find humor in a challenging situation. And I told them my answer, and I am serious, I am not joking. My answer is pills and ignoring everything that's happening around me. And that is true. If you have a heart problem, if you have a sinus infection, you take the medicine for it. So don't be afraid to take the pills or ask for help if you need it. But ignoring everything happening around me is more about knowing what you can or can't control. There's plenty of things I worry about and plenty of things I try to control that I can't. But in this case, we can't control when things are open or closed. We can't control the virus. We certainly can't control our president. So by ignoring the things happening, just kind of sticking with your daily routine, it helps me stay positive, but finding the humor in things is pretty easy when you are able to spot what's funny and light and happy going on around you. For me, it usually involves making fun of my mother or my husband. So here's an example of something. Years ago, when we were trying to potty train our younger son, I stepped on something that didn't feel like carpet, and it turns out he pooped on the floor. Now, this is a great time for parents to freak out. A, your kid pooped on the floor. B, the carpet. C, you're barefoot. So I was able to spin it into something more positive. I called the grandparents and said, we have good news and bad news. The good news is Leo peed on the potty. The bad news is he pooped on the floor. So you're just gonna try to turn it into a positive and find something good or something funny, because something's got to stick out as funny. I would also say after years of therapy and a really good prescription, I'm finally getting my money's worth during the quarantine. If you've had anxiety before, this should be nothing for you. So another thing I was asked about is how to find things to make yourself laugh. So a couple things I came up with that I've done, mostly with friends, come up with things like a fun secret nickname to remember people by. I'm going to give you an example. There was a guy I dated, and I referred to him as Gay Toupee, the anti-Semitic Jew, because he was clearly gay. He was clearly wearing a toupee. And one night, on our second date and last date, he said he wanted to go out with another couple and said, don't tell them we're Jewish. And I said, your last name is Weissman. So now I can just refer to him as Gay Toupee, the anti-Semitic Jew. Yeah, it's probably not the greatest dating experience ever, but now it's pretty funny. You could also ask yourself some weird questions and try to answer them, right? So if you're nervous about something, take a look at what's happening around you. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're having a bad day, but what's happening around you and how can you reframe it to ask yourself a question? I'll give you another example. I'm walking around at Target and I think, what would aliens think if they looked in my cart at Target? So I want you to think about that when you're bored. What would an alien think if they saw you? My alien would think, by looking in my cart at Target, all I do is clean, eat almonds, and get my period. Any tricks for calming down if you're having anxiety or you want to find humor in an anxiety-provoking situation? I had a big one a year ago. My husband was in the hospital. It was pretty bad. And I was nervous every second, running around in circles and freaking out a lot. So I decided to play a little game because I felt like I was swimming in my own nerves. And I said, I'm going to write a book. And I spent my time trying to make up fun chapters of my book. Do you want me to read you some of my chapters? Yes? Okay. I'm going to title the book Swimming in Diarrhea. The chapters include, I hate hospitals, but I love people saying, have you eaten? Mommy's secret airplane pills aren't just for airplanes anymore. Is Jeff sedated or just acting normal? I know where they keep the pudding. The wide world of beeping machinery. Heart hospital nurses can only be 25 years old and hot. That one's true. Closed captioning for doctor speeches. Is it possible? The unhealthiest food in the world. A tour of the hospital cafeteria. Don't bring garlicky takeout into the elevator. Doctor minutes are like football minutes. It's never really just 5. You're waiting for the doctor forever and they say, oh, we'll be back. We're waiting for our team. And it's like 2 hours. It's like watching the end of a football game. They say 5 minutes. It's never 5 minutes. And finally, a final chapter called The Healing Touch Lady. Some woman came in and said, I'm the healing touch nurse. Would you mind if I did some energy transfer? I didn't know what that was, but I figured my insurance paid for it. So she put some oil on her hands and held her hands high over her body and went back and forth. And I thought, she just said healing touch. Is there someone I can speak to? Because I'm pretty sure my insurance paid for her to touch somebody and she wasn't touching anybody. I was terrified the whole time, but it wasn't going to get me anywhere unless I could keep a level head. So in order to keep a level head, try to play a little game with myself and make myself see some humor in a very not humorous situation. How many of you wake up in the middle of the night wondering, when will things reopen? Will the event you have happen? Will your job be gone? Is anybody waking up in the middle of the night or can't fall asleep? You got to play a little game with yourself. You can go through the alphabet, name a celebrity with each letter of the alphabet. Or in my case, I play a game called Outfits. I think of the clothing in my closet and what new outfits can I make? And I fall asleep right away because my clothes are very boring. And since it's close to summer, I'm playing a new game called White Pants. What can I wear with white pants? I'm out right away. Real anxiety help, of course, involves going to therapy and learning things you're trying to get help with. And you need to have some confidence. And one question I was asked was, how do you get confidence? Sadly, you can't buy it. We don't all have it all the time. We probably have ebbing and flowing, hopefully concentrating on what you're good at. But truly, you can fake it until you start to believe it yourself. You could, let's say you're speaking in front of a group or in front of your computer screen like I am now. Now, let's say you're speaking in front of a group, and public speaking is like the #1 fear when you ask people in America what their #1 fear is. What if you pretend you are an actress and you are acting like you're the most confident person there is? Just keep at it. Eventually, you're going to believe your own publicity. Maybe you're scared to fly in an airplane, which I think is the second largest fear. You could pretend you're a celebrity and you're going on one of your many appearances, sort of faking it until you actually believe what that is. I am looking at some of the questions here. Anybody need to wave me down? No? No? No waving? Well, kids, I'm going to talk a little bit about keeping that confidence and keeping a positive attitude and what you can use to stay positive in a time like this. Nobody's experienced anything like this. We're all scared. Nobody, not one person has the answers on what we're supposed to do or what we're not supposed to do. Moms are shaming each other for their decisions. People are feeling low confidence, thinking they're doing the wrong thing. Should you be beating yourself up? Of course not. Don't beat yourself up. Telling yourself what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing, thinking, I should be working out, I should be baking bread, I shouldn't be doing this. Now you're just shoulding all over yourself, and you don't want to do that. That's never good. No shoulding all over yourself. Rely on your friends, and I hope you have friends who have qualities you admire, who are people you look up to, and you want to be around those people because that's why they're friends with you. You have qualities they admire, and that's why they're friends with you. Just because someone else has success doesn't mean there's no room for yours. So if jealousy is factoring in and you're trying to keep up with them, it's never going to work. You're never going to be happy, and it's never going to be fixed. You should give yourself a break and realize that you don't have to give everything 100% every time when you're overwhelmed or when you're stressed, and that sometimes being good enough is good enough. So give yourself a break. If you're always asking yourself, what if, you need to counter this to yourself. What if I trip and fall and everybody laughs at me? What if I mess up the entire speech? What if you don't? Ask yourself that. And finally, when you are having anxiety out of nowhere or anxiety in a specific situation, ask yourself something, and this is where my years of therapy are really paying for themselves, when you can quote the therapist to other people. You need to ask yourself, are you in danger or are you just uncomfortable? If you're just uncomfortable, you know it will pass, you know you can move into something else, you know you can think about something else. If you're in danger, get the hell out of there. Two different things. Example, if you ever see me running, you should start running because that means something's wrong. So I am going to wrap up with that. Focus on your positives. Focus on your friends' positives. The negatives and the jealousy will not make you happy, and it will never work. You won't be positive, and you won't be able to calm yourself down or comfort yourself. If you talk to yourself in a negative way, think, would you ever talk to one of your friends or family members like that? Probably not. And now back to Julie Yowitz. And Julie, you need to unmute yourself. Jessica's going to unmute you. Technical things.
Got it? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Amy, for your words of humor and encouragement as we all navigate this situation. Thank you for all being here, and we hope you will join us next Wednesday, same time and same place. All sessions will be recorded and posted on the Women's Philanthropy webpage at wp.jfedstl.org. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.